All right. Listen, on the show today, I've got my good friend, Alex Koromanis. Listen, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. I know you got a busy schedule, so we're going to be talking about some good stuff today.
Absolutely. And I'm, first of all, very grateful to be on. I'm honored to be, sharing the, virtual space with, someone we haven't really spent a tremendous amount of time, but we've known each other, like you mentioned, we were talking earlier about that, for many years. And to see everything that you've done as a leader, putting together, the meetup groups, doing the actual material, the books that you've put out, doing the podcast, crushing it. I mean, I'm not sure. I remember back in the day, you were doing still some realtor stuff. I'm not sure if you're doing any realtor stuff. You're just managing a team, right? You're not doing the actual.
No, you know what? I actually do some realtor stuff. I'm
so
actually trying to.
Man.
Yeah, I still do.
Hey,
I'm trying to push some of it off my plate, but I am still doing the realtor stuff. You know what? There's parts of it that I still enjoy. I do enjoy it. I'm not bringing on new clients, and if I do, I'm very selective. But I'm working with a lot of the clients that I've had in the past. So I've got a busy plate.
It's a tremendous load, man. Kudos to you. You're an inspiration and a leader. So glad to share space with you today.
I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. And however, I do find a lot of time to actually have some downtime as well too. So right after I'm done with this podcast, I'm going up to my cottage and we're going to be up there for 4 days. And so you do have to find that balance of working hard and also playing hard, right?
Can we talk about that, please? I'd like to expound on that because you just made me think about, like, maybe I'm a masochist. I don't know, but I have this problem where, sometimes I feel like I haven't done enough, because maybe I haven't hurt enough for long enough or something like that. And there's almost this sense of, guilt in trying to just pull your head out of that and just take a breath, look at the leaves for a little bit, and then get back into it. Like, that's a struggle for me sometimes. So to hear you say that, again, tell me more about that. Like, how does going to the cottage help you kind of get back into it?
Well, what it does is it allows me to refocus. It allows me to shut out all the noise. It allows me to be able to just be quiet.
Yeah.
And when you're quiet, that is when creativity is born.
I agree with you.
Yeah. And so that is why I do that. Right. But when it's time to work, I work. And there's, there's very few that kind of really I'll say outplay me because I like to work super hard. But then when it's time to play, oh man, I play just as hard.
Awesome.
So, and I think that's how life is supposed to be. And if you can create that world where you can actually be in a position where you can retire a couple times out of the year, that it doesn't create like this feeling of working hard all the time. Now, some people do like working hard all the time. For me, that's just not me.
I agree. I'm with you, man.
Yeah. But you know what I always remember is when we first met. And one of the things that, I used to do the smart home choice meetings. And anytime I saw somebody in that room, I always kind of said to myself, I'm going to keep an eye on this person here. I'm going to keep an eye on that person, because you can tell when they continually show up, and you can tell by the questions that they ask, you can tell by the way that they're interacting with different people in the room, that there's that hunger and that drive there. And that's why I have you on the show today, because you have that, and what I've seen you do over the years has just been incredible. And that's what I wanted to talk about today with you, because I think one of the hardest things in getting into real estate is, where do you get the money from if you don't have the money or if you don't have the credit? And you've crushed it in this space. But before we jump right into that, who's Alex? What are you all about? Give me a little story about your background, maybe how you grew up, your childhood, your parents.
Sure. I'll try my best. That's you've just kind of baited me, because I'm a philosopher, and now you're asking me to get existential with you here. So I'm happy to jump in with that.
Yeah.
Who is Alex? You know what? The easiest way probably to think of me is I'm effectively a puppy. I just like to, take a dump on the ground wherever I see fit, and bite people. No. I'm very easily distracted. I like to play, got energy, and, I'm all about bringing joy and comfort to people. It's kind of my thing. I'm not sure how like astrological you get. I'm not really, again, I'm more a man of science than astrology, but there's something useful to it there. And I'm kind of fit that mold of a Pisces. I'm sort of a Pisces, but also Aries. So it's like I'm an old baby I'm like the best of kind of both worlds in that respect. Like I got some level of wisdom, enough to get me going, but I'm also just a kid at heart. So,
Right. Okay. Well, I'm Aries as well too. I
all
love, it's
right.
probably, obviously it's my favorite sign. So I love Aries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what you saw. It wasn't that I was anything special. You just saw, oh, that guy's married. He's my boy.
but you know what though? But to add to that though, yes, I do believe in science, and I also do believe in astrology, and I think they can still tie together. I really
Sure.
do.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
But
You know what? That's great that I love that you put yourself out there like that, because it's such an easy point of criticism for someone to look at. But here's the real thing that interests me, maybe as a philosopher,
Mhm.
is despite the fact that, we don't really get how astrology works, like it comes from like, shaky ground, it still fills some gaps. It makes some explanations and makes some predictions, and that's part of the utility of science. So even though it doesn't really have a science grounding, it still seems to hit on something that we can agree on. It accounts for things like we just said, right? And oftentimes you can explain a person, you just go, what's up with that guy? Oh, he's got he's got an Aries moon and like a Virgo sign. Oh, okay, that's why okay. You kind of make sense of that person. And that's actually an effective tool to manage that kind of person. If you hear that they're a certain way, you're like, okay, well maybe they're this sign, which can tend to be either way. So maybe I have to see how this works, and then if they react, I'll go this way because I know they can change. Whatever. It's a
Right.
good tool.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I agree with that. I do. And so obviously you like that type of stuff. And then what about why did you get into real estate investing? Was there something
Yeah.
that where you just weren't happy with your job,
Yeah.
or where were you working?
Well, the joke that I always use is, I have a philosophy degree, so I kind of
Okay.
have no choice but to become a real estate investor, right? I mean, I'm not. A lot of the guys that you see just crushing it are, to some manner of speaking, a business-minded person. Like they love discussing real estate, they love looking at deals, they love the analysis, or they love, how things are figured out, and they just really love getting really great at that. And I don't have that same kind of vigor. I'm more of like I'm a skateboarder and a family man, and I'm a puppy, like I said. So does that kind of person have any reason to be in that kind of a business? Well, no, but I'm just too practical. I mean, I love that real estate offers all kinds of protections and all kinds of leverage. And
Mhm.
as far as, if you look at businesses, I mean, I didn't want to get into business because I heard how rotten the statistics were. Like most people will fail inevitably,
Right.
right? So it's like, why would I put everything on the line, not develop a career, not have that safety net, just to inevitably lose? But real estate is different. It affords a lot more padding than many businesses. So it's very
Right.
practical, very easy in that way.
Right. But what were you doing before?
Oh,
Wait, I
I
know.
was
So you're a
bartending.
philosopher, but okay. So you
Yeah.
actually went to, is it college, university, got your
Well,
philosopher?
I went to York, and I actually got a double. I'm going to, sort of have a little ego here, I guess, but I have a double major in philosophy and cognitive science. It was like a joint discipline. And I
Yeah.
wrote 2 papers that solved problems in philosophy. I really enjoyed like contemporary problems in philosophy. I wrote papers that were potential solutions. Like that's not like a normal requirement. Like I really cared and I really thought about it, and I found my niche. I really liked that kind of stuff. So I did that. I got the degrees, but I was bartending, while I was in school.
Yeah.
And when I was done school, I applied for this job at what seemed to be a great company for a sales gig.
Yeah.
And I got the job. Like I nailed the interview because I just believed in it. And I turned it down. I think the commission was going to be, I think it was like a split salary and commission thing, but I just realized at that time I took the Rich Dad Poor Dad, free weekend,
Hmm.
and I signed up for the courses, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get, we were talking about this before about a little bit distraction. I'm just going to get distracted with a career and give myself less time to focus on real estate, because I also like to play so much, right? So
Right.
I'm like, I'm gonna cut that tie loose and stick with bartending and force myself to make a real estate thing work.
Right. So you take and so obviously, so you got into the rich dad, poor dad, and it was
Hmm.
because what, the income just wasn't there. It wasn't working
Yeah,
out
the
for you.
income.
Was that
Well,
the driving force?
what it was for me was I realized when I was done school that I had $20,000 saved. So
Mm.
I thought, well, I clearly am good with money. I
That's what
probably will end up having a lot more money.
I was just going to say, that you had 20,000 saved as opposed to
Yeah,
in debt.
in debt. Yeah, yeah. just from
That's like
bartending. Like
that's like a 1% chance.
I
Okay.
know, I know. But the thing is that it's not, it's like you were saying, like, man, I remember in the last couple of years of school, I took summer school
Hmm.
and I was bartending, and I was bartending through the school year, but only a couple of days, but still, like, I didn't give myself time off for like months, or not months, years, near the end of school. I was just grinding and grinding. And something about having that 20K saved at the end, just got that gear turning. I'm like, if I'm just able to do this now with this little job, I'm clearly going to do this at a larger scale, but I'm going to have the same problem, which is I don't know what to do with this money. That was
Right.
really it. That was the impetus. It's like, what do I do? What's the point? Like, what, I amassed it. Now what? I'm not just going to like squander it. What should I do?
Why Rich Dad Poor Dad? Why real estate?
Um, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Well, the reason I got into that was because there was this guy who became a friend of mine when I was bartending. He was an older gentleman who was working on high-end homes.
Yeah.
That like he had his own profession doing that, and he was constantly telling me about books to read, and I'm like, nah, because like I'm in philosophy and I'm just doubting him and whatever. But then that whole thing about the 20K hit. I also saw this little thing about Ben and Jerry's, and I realized, like, man, these two hippies are just like cashing in on stupid, cute ice cream names while people are doing the real hard work. They can't be smarter than me. So he's starting to like I'm escalating a little bit. And this guy who kept coming in all the fucking time, driving
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
crazy with these books. I'm like, dude, I finally read one of the books that he gave me. And I think the first book he gave me was Prospecting with Posture and Confidence by Bob Proctor. It's like a network marketing book.
Right. Yeah.
And I got some good stuff out of there. And I told him, hey, I read it. This is what I learned. This is what I tried. And these are the results I got. And he was like, man, no one does that. Like, nobody does that. I'm happy to give you
Right.
more books. So he gets me on that, path of reading personal development books.
Hmm.
And, of course, he mentioned Robert Kiyosaki. I see this weekend thing come up, and I'm like, the only guy crazy enough to go to this with me who won't ridicule me is this dude Andre. So I
Right.
go with him. I see what the course has to offer, and I'm like, well, I still don't know, but let's see. I take the 3-day weekend for $200. So first was the free, then $200 for the 3, and then 15 grand for the actual courses. But
Right.
by the time I got to that second weekend, even if just something about the way, so Pip Stellick was the guy, I guess, pitching the courses and giving the information. He was just giving so much good information during those 3 days that I thought, even if this is a scam, like, he's onto something here. Like, something makes a lot of sense about this. And that kind of started this hunger to expand and to grow and to learn more.
Right. What I like about
Mm.
that story is that it's very similar to mine as well, too, is that
Mm.
you got into the mindset piece first, which I
Yeah,
think is incredibly important. And then from the
I agree.
mindset piece, you then realize that, wow, I can actually do what I want to do with my life. That
Yeah, yeah,
it's not, I don't have to just go down this regular road. There's something
that's
else
awesome. Yeah,
out there that I can actually do.
yeah.
And then you're like, hold on, I can do real estate investing. Even though I
Mm.
don't have the money for it,
Yes,
I can do
yes,
it.
yes.
Right.
That's
So
such
that,
a, like, that's the mindset right there, though, because that thinking, that's all it was. It wasn't that you got a lottery ticket. It wasn't that you, like, a perfect deal fell into your lap. It was just that thought right there that I don't need the money. Like, I can get the money.
I
And
can
that changes
manifest
everything.
it.
It's like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, which is
Precisely, yeah.
incredible. And I know that somebody right now is thinking, or they're listening to this, and they're like, you can just manifest it. But you
Yeah.
can. That's the craziest thing,
Mm.
because I was in the exact same position as well, too. And I know where you came from as well, and what you
Yeah.
do. And so then now,
Yeah.
so you finished the course.
Mhm.
And then now, are you able to jump right into your first investment property, or do you have to do something different? Where do you go next?
So again, I'm a little, like, I'm kind of weird, the two extremes, maybe the Pisces Aries things battling each other. I
Yeah.
like to take risk. I like to live dangerously, but I also like to be calculated and very sure that I'm protected, right?
Right.
So after I take the courses, I'm like, man, there's a lot of great information here. I'm probably not going to buy the deal of the century tomorrow. It's going to take some time. So maybe I'll try out some of these ideas. I'll look around Kijiji. I'll analyze properties. In the meantime, I'll read every day. I'll read all the greatest personal development books, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Personality Plus, 5 Love Languages, the Magic of Thinking Big. I was just eating it all the time. And
Mhm.
it took me about I think 8 or 9 months or so from the time that I took the course to actually purchasing my first property. Because in that time I was just getting myself, like I had to, I think what it was that I realized, like, my brothers are computer engineers, very sharp guys, and they're Greek. And Greeks have this thing, I think, this proclivity for like argumentation, where it's just this intellectual battle all the damn time. So I think for me to undo some of that crap that I was raised with about being pessimistic or skeptical or, you know, doubting everything, I had to give myself over to more faith. Like I had to step away from being so secular and so like objectively minded or so, you know, scientifically minded or whatever, to just seeing what was out there. And that took me some time, I think, to overcome. Also, you know, I'm a little scared. So I put out a couple of like letters of intent or whatever, but I don't want to get anything legal. I don't know the implications yet. Like there's so much to know. It's really quite terrifying.
Right.
If you're the kind of person who thinks things through like that, you know.
And you're talking about your first wholesale deal, right? Is that what you're
Oh,
talking about?
the first deal that I did. Oh, well, the first wholesale deal I did was actually by accident. Here's manifesting for you. Here's a great example. I had a dream. So I had this neighbor in the first property that I bought. We'll talk about, I guess, that first property. But my neighbor, I had this dream. He's an older guy, a super nice guy. I just had this dream that he gave me property. He's just like, you know what, I want you to have it, right? And I'm like, oh wow, that's great. And literally like a few days later, he goes, hey, you know, you're in real estate doing stuff. Well, I've got this land. I really don't want it. Will you take it? I was like, what? This is crazy. It's like my dream.
Yeah.
So then I go, well, you know, they say never look a gift horse in the mouth, but I'm very critical and analytical, so I want to look at. And I looked into this land, and it turned out it was the most useless, god-awful piece of land there is. It was waterlocked, landlocked. It flooded. You can't build on it. It was completely useless. But what I did was I kind of kept it on the back burner, threw it out on Kijiji, tried to, you know, find buyers. And I found an engineer who knew how to shore up enough of it that he could build, I think, a tree house or some kind of thing to make it work for his kids. He would use a boat, go to the tree house, whatever, and leave. So that was the right buyer. And that was my first accidental wholesale deal. Yeah.
Okay. And then the next deal now, let's get into like maybe like a residential deal that you did.
Sure.
Like
yeah.
how did you do that? Can you maybe walk us through that? Because again, I think a lot of people that would be listening to this particular podcast will be people who maybe don't have the credit, don't have the money, and they don't think that they can actually do this. However, you've done it. So I want them to really kind of understand,
Sure.
you know, how it works.
Let's talk about my first deal then. So the first deal, I paid 15 grand, first of all, for these Rich Dad courses, right? So that 20K I had, that was for that, right? So I'm down to 5K, and I'm thinking, okay, I know that there's the zero down deals, no money needed, you know, raise everything. I get that, but it's kind of hard for me to do that on my first deal. I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't have a network built up. I haven't, you know, done any work yet. So what I did was, in that 8 months, I was obviously bartending still and aggressively. So I saved up, you know, more cash, and I read enough books that I was, you know, much more confident talking about real estate and understanding, you know, rejection better and these kinds of things. So it got to the point where, yeah, I mean, like, I'm ready to buy, but, you know, tough to qualify. But I think we had about 30 or 40K. And I borrowed my mom's line of credit on the first deal because she had a property in Scarborough, and she only had the one. She only has the one, but she had tenants in there, so she understood, you know, the leverage and the power of real estate. So I said, hey, look, you know, you've got a ton of equity in the property. I'd like to purchase this property. Can I borrow off your line of credit to purchase? What I'm going to do is I'm going to add, you know, I'm going to rent out the upstairs. I'm going to live in the basement. I'm going to do the work myself. I've got this much cash to do that, whatever. And she was like, yeah, you know, that makes sense. No problem. And plus, you know, I'm her kid, so she's, you know, taking a chance on me, I guess. But at any rate, the thing that I want to point out quickly with that one is, if you're in a situation where you don't have a parent who has, you know, that line of credit, then it's simply just a matter of you needing more time, because you need to become the kind of a person that can attract that kind of money. So you got to be reading all these books. You got to be going to all these network meetings. And like you said, Gary, you have to be that kind of a person that the leader in the room looks at you and says, "Oh, this guy's or this gal is for real. Like they got something, they got fire in their belly, and they're tired of
Right.
this rigged game that we're all playing, and they want to do something." Like people will
Yep.
see that, and the energy, the money follows with the energy.
Right. So here's the thing that I like about that is the fact that you ended up using what's called OPM, so other people's
Yeah,
money.
OPM.
Right. And I think that's such an important part of real estate, because the thing with when you're buying, you're getting into real estate, especially real estate investing, you need a large down payment. And a lot of
Yeah,
times, that first property takes it all, or sometimes you just don't have enough for that first property. So
yeah.
then that's why other people's money is super important. I like the fact that you also spent, your almost all your $20,000 for education. And I'm telling you,
That's right.
that goes to show how important that is. And so you look back now, and would you say that that was money wisely spent?
That's a great question. Yes, because I did a couple interesting things with it. So number one, I was able to write off that expense because it was related to the business in this property. Number two, I was able to leverage that information from that course to developing my own courses that I put online. So I produced a passive income from that. Three, obviously, being involved in those courses gave me a different mindset and different tools as an investor to understanding how to evaluate properties, how to negotiate a little bit, what to look for, what to put in your agreement of purchase and sale. That gave me all of that beginning stuff there.
Yeah.
And where was I going with that? Was it worth it? Uh, Today we live in an age, we live in the information age, right?
Mhm.
But today especially, there's so much information about real estate. We've got your podcast, we got your meetups, we got there's a couple even in just Durham alone that are pretty major. And you've got the Bigger Pockets podcast, you've got the website, you've
Yeah.
got audiobooks. Like there's so much information now. I don't think you need to spend the 15 grand. But what I did was I actually made that 15 grand cost come back to me. So if you're going to spend that money, I didn't really do this, but you may want to consider, how can I, not even just for the education purpose, but how can I actually monetize this transaction? How can I make it work
Right.
for me now?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so then let's fast forward a bit now. So you start Treetop Residential, which is your wholesaling
Mm-hmm.
company, correct? Is it wholesaling
Yeah.
that you only do in that, or is it joint ventures as well too?
So I've got, I guess, two businesses. One is the wholesaling business. The other is the multifamily acquisition business. So
Okay.
the 11 unit that I bought was the biggest of the multifamily that I bought in my history, I guess, so far. So
Yeah.
that one was really one that I wanted to, be a little bit careful with and show that I could do it with my own cash. And then I could show that to joint venture partners later and be like, this is my own cash that I put in, this is the
Right.
cash that I borrowed, and this is the returns, and
Right.
because it goes a long way when you can actually show that you have skin in the game. You don't necessarily have to do it that way. It's just the way it ended up happening for me in this case.
Got it.
But yeah, did I answer
So,
your question there?
yeah, you did. So where are you
Oh,
finding your
good.
deals? Like,
Yeah,
are you going door to door? Are you using Kijiji?
I'm lazy, so I don't do door to door, but it
Okay.
is a great strategy. I will go. So if I'm driving for dollars or I'm just driving, I see a property, I may stop and knock on the door. If no one answers, I'll leave a flyer. But most of my deal flow comes from my marketing. So I have a website. I have flyers that I send out. I did do some Kijiji stuff before, but that ended up being mostly a lot more effort for very little return. The door knocking thing is a great way to go because I think what's effective with the marketing that I use is that people feel like there's a personal touch with it. And you really can't do better than being face to face with someone saying, hey, I was just walking by. This is who I am. This is what I do. I'm just wondering if there's any interest, in selling. And if there isn't, that's totally fine. I'm sorry for disruption or whatever. Right.
Right. But when you're doing that now, are you taking a look at a particular property and differentiating them on a street? Like, are you doing every single house in that street,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Is this
or
something
you
you stand?
looking for houses that look like they haven't been looked after?
Well, here's the thing. If you're going to spend your time, I mean, you might as well spend it on the most likely outcome, right? So I look for properties that have signs of distress. So signs of distress, you know, there's not a one size fits all, but generally speaking, you know, if you're walking by, you see beautiful house, beautiful house, beautiful house, 2-story, 3-story, and then the bungalow nestled in between, you know, these other houses. That's a pretty clear indication, like, wow, this is the ugly duckling on the street. All these properties are great, but this one's the problem property. What do I see? Well, I see curling shingles. I see a tire on the lawn. The grass is, you know, 3 feet high. There's a plank of plywood in the basement window. You know, these are signs that someone is either neglecting the property on purpose, or they simply do not have the means to continue on carrying on with it. So that's someone I want to find out about. Someone who has, because at the end of the day, I mean, maybe this is kind of sliding out of the question a little bit, but when it comes to negotiation, it's not like you're going around casting spells and being super convincing, and then people just give you, you know, reductions on the properties. They have to be motivated. I mean, that's the bottom line. I can't say or argue or present anything attractive to someone who's got a million options, right? They just have too many options. They don't need to accept my deal.
And you know, yeah, I was going to say, and for one of my properties that I actually had listed for one of my clients, I actually got one of your letters. This is like actually like just maybe about a month ago in South Oshawa there.
Oh,
and so I grabbed the mail for my client and brought it home. And I'm like, hey, this is Alex's letter. But you know what was cool about it was I like the way that that it was written. It felt personal, and it felt like, okay, you actually had some, you know, desire to help me potentially get out of a situation if I was a homeowner, if I was in it. And so I thought that was brilliant marketing. So that was really good. Yeah. So
I can't take all the credit. I mean, you know Michael Corals, right? Or like the yellowletters.com stuff. Do you know that?
I don't know. No.
So I don't know. Michael Corals is apparently a big deal in the States, but he has this website, yellowletters.com, I think it is, or you can Google it. But that's basically where the concept comes from, right? The yellow letter concept. Now, what he recommends is, you know, actual yellow paper and, you know, a certain kind of print that looks handwritten and like all these other little things. And what we did differently, actually, this came out from the OG days, like with me and Luke Boyron, when Luke actually spearheaded it, right? He goes, we can send out some flyers and we can try and get some properties off market, because going through the MLS has just been a pain in the ass. Like I spent 6 months looking for deals on the MLS, and I got nothing. Like I had a couple, but they fell apart. It's hard. And what Luke said was, you know, we'll send out these letters written in blue ink because it'll be more personal. And we're like, oh, that's a great idea. So I think my contribution to it was kind of a layout, you know, little check marks and like little snippets of what we're trying to say and trying to keep it concise and tight. But the thing that you mentioned there, the reason why, you know, that handwritten letter approach is more effective is because like I've received glossy, you know, ads with photos, and I've received, you know, other pieces of paper that have everything printed out. And it just seems like this is someone who's trying to buy my property from me. It doesn't seem like, hey, this person's taking the time to, you know, reach me, let's say.
Right.
So I think
so you find that more effective then, or do you find the online advertisement that you're doing more effective?
The online advertisement is effective as well. It's just you get more crap as well. So it's like, I mean, I don't really know. You got your they're pretty neck and neck with the BS that you have to deal with on a regular basis. Like it's so at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. You're going to get as many leads at the top of the funnel as you can. So on the website, I generate, you know, okay leads, but I haven't really geared it up with like an SEO person. I may look at doing that.
Yeah. But how are they finding you though? How are they finding your website?
So it'll usually be from Yellow Letters, or
are you doing like any Google AdWords?
No, I'm thinking about it. Have you done the Google AdWords thing?
I've done it back in the days, like when I used to do a lot of rent to owns. I would do, you know, Google AdWords there. But you're right though. It is a numbers game, right? Like I mean, with rent to own back in the days, you know, we'd have to go through, you know, 100 clients, to finally get down to say 1 or 2, right? That was just it. So it always kind of comes down to number games. Now, what about the contracts? So now, you know, somebody calls you, you go out there, you take a look at their property, you obviously do some type of proposal, say, here's what, you know, I'm willing to do for you to try and make a win-win situation. But what kind of contracts are you using?
Well, I use the OREA template.
Okay.
So if you're a realtor, they can ask you to stop, and then you just stop. And sorry, if you're a realtor, you can use it. If you're not a realtor, you're not supposed to use those forms. So I'll use the template. And you don't need to do that. I think you can easily just Google or go on a real estate related network thing, and you can find contracts out there. But that's what I
Right.
use. As for the clauses, I got those from a mix of like lawyer and realtor,
Yeah.
just what they've used in the past. So this is the thing actually, and that's the other cool thing about real estate is everybody's already done what you want to do. Like just find those people and then copy them. Like
Right.
straight up, you're not supposed to do that in school, but you're allowed to do that in real life, and it's actually a
Yeah.
lot faster and a lot more comforting. So for my clauses, like, I know that some wholesalers say, we buy without conditions. I've never really had an issue with a seller and conditions. I've never had that problem. I usually insert at least two that are exit clauses, what we call exit clauses. So one is, this deal is conditional on inspection. I don't make it specific that I'm going to have a property inspector. I just say an inspection satisfactory to the buyer. So I can do
Right.
the inspection. My contractor can do it. My partner can do it. That way I don't actually have to pay for an inspector to do that in order to waive that or to use that clause as an exit, right? Because
Right.
if you say you're going to do inspection, but you don't do an inspection, you back out of that. You got to show like, well, we did the inspection. Now we're not buying it, right?
Right.
So I
And,
don't
and
avoid that problem.
and so is this what's called now putting under contract when you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's under contract, but not necessarily saying that you're buying the property. You're just you're holding it. You're the middleman. And
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
So that's right. So what it is for whenever when you're going to purchase a contract, you're going to
Yeah.
have a buyer name in there.
Yeah.
Every agreement that you have, you can assign. And an assignment just means a change of name, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to actually have an assignment clause. I still put one in there to make my sellers aware, hey, I will most likely assign this to another name. And when you have that name on there, basically all that matters is that you're controlling this contract. You've got your name on it, you've got your signature, you've got the seller's name, and you got their signature. That's a binding contract. So now you have
Right.
control of this property just by having that ink on paper.
Yep.
And what I'll do for many deals is I'll just change the name to another buyer and they'll give me a fee in exchange for doing that. Other times I'll maybe assign it to my own corporation and then close on the property.
Right.
So
And
that's
so
what I
then
use.
are you then transparent then to the actual homeowner saying, hey, look, we may have a few potential investors or other people that may buy your property coming through. Is that the level of transparency?
Yeah, I definitely let them know, hey, I'm not sure what we're going to end up doing with this property yet. We're going to bring in prospective partners of ours and see, what we want to do here.
Right.
Because it could be the case that sometimes, someone just says, hey, I got the cash. I just don't have the time or the team here.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to join JV? Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. That could be the case. I may close on it. My corporation may close on it. I'm selective with who I'm upfront with about straight up saying, hey, I'm going to get a fee for this. I'm just handing it over to another investor. Because some sellers are a little bit sensitive about that. There's this sense that some people have an arbitrary requirement for what work is. Like
Yep.
you need to be sweating enough and bleeding enough in order to have earned that money. When the reality
Exactly.
is like, look, you've got a problem. I'm here to solve that problem. I can totally do it. I can get you out
Right.
when you want. We can do all these great things, but I'm going to make money. They know I'm going to make money. I
Right.
just say, in those cases where I feel like they might be a little bit, touchy, I'll just go, hey, I got partners coming through and, do it that way. Sometimes I'll just tell them straight up, like, you know what, I'm not buying this, but I know an investor who's going to, give me a fee to take it. And they'll be like,
Got it.
yeah, no problem. They don't care. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then, so is there anything else? And so, yeah, so an investor comes in, they like the property. I say, hey, Alex, you know what? I'm ready to buy this thing off you. And then it just gets transferred into my name. And then I go and get my lawyer, get my financing and all that in order. Is there
That's it.
anything else missing in that wholesale transaction? Because this is really good content, especially for somebody brand new, just to kind of understand the flow of it, right? Is that
Yeah.
kind of the gist of it
Yeah.
there? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you got to have a deposit, right? So that's a point of negotiation. There's no legal requirement. You don't even actually, I don't think there's even a requirement to put an amount of money. I think it just has to be, I think the law is just that it's good faith. So if there's something that's very important to me, like a nail clipping, it was my grandmother's nail clipping, right? It reminds me of her, right? I'm going to put
Right.
that as a deposit. I want that back.
Right.
Right. I mean, I mean, I don't know that I would do that, but I'm just saying. So what I do normally with my sellers is I feel them out, right? I'll just sort of say, you know, hey, I'm going to buy this property. If you had listed this property, you might want to ask for a hefty deposit, because if someone makes an offer on this property, it's sold conditional and then doesn't sell, that stigmatizes your property. That looks bad. This is a private sale. So the deposit doesn't really have that power. You know, I'm going to buy this property, but how much do you need for a deposit? Because you're not going to access
Right.
that cash. It's just going to be added to the closing costs. So,
Yeah.
and then they'll say, well, you know, I just look, I can give you $100 right now that you could spend. That will be a deposit. Does that work for you? Yeah. Or how about, you know, like I do a lot of deals. I can't be putting $40,000, $50,000 deposits every time. Is $1,000, you know, sufficient? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I'll give it to your lawyer or my lawyer in trust. And that's another thing actually. So another detail, with purchasing properties on MLS through a realtor, you're going to have to do a deposit in the seller's lawyer in trust.
Right.
But when you're making your own deals, you have your own lawyer in trust. There's no reason to give it over to another lawyer in trust. You just say, this is what we're doing. I'm going to have my lawyer hold $1,000 in trust. I'm going to send proof of the deposit to your lawyer.
Right. Okay.
That's
You know what
another
I
detail.
liked? Yeah, no, that's good though. And that's really great information, especially for somebody who's starting off. And again, they don't have the money, they don't have the credit. What I like, what you said earlier, and I think this is incredibly important, is that, yeah, you do not have to try and go out there and blaze your own trail. There are
Yeah.
tons of people out there that have already done this. And all you got to do is mimic this. And I remember when we started Smart Home Choice, and people were asking me like, how do you do it? And I was just telling them everything. And I remember somebody was asking me like, why are you giving away everything that you do? And I said, because most people won't do it anyways.
Yeah.
You can,
I completely hear you there.
yeah, like you can give them the exact ingredient exactly and how to do it. And again, it's just that 80-20 rule. And then especially when you come into real estate, I think it might even be lower than that. That just most people just won't do it. There's just so much work involved in it. There's a lot of grind that's involved in it. And unfortunately, a lot of times people end up seeing the end result and like, man, Alex, you're so lucky. But they don't see all that work that you've put into the background and driving around in those neighborhoods and going through 100 emails or applications or whatever it is to get that one deal. And
so
so then
much
they're
of
like,
that.
well, why are you charging so much for this for your assignment? And it's like, you didn't see the 60 hours I put in to get this one deal. All right.
For sure, that's right, and that's actually the funny thing. So I think some people maybe who are starting off are going to be nervous about, well, I can't assign a property and make more money than my buyer, and
Right.
yeah, you can, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what money you make. All that matters is what your buyer is going to make. So you go to your buyer,
Right.
hey, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, how'd you like to make 30 grand on $10,000 roughly, right? In 4 weeks. Because it's an easy cleanup. You just put it in there, list it, and you're going to sell it to the cheapest property in this town or whatever. You're going to make 30 grand, hands down, easy. They're going to say, well, that's great. And be like, good, because I'm going to make $100,000 on this assignment. Like not, just throwing that whack number out there. I'm going to make $100,000. Is that okay? Like you're going to make 30 grand. You just said it was okay. Why does that change just because I'm making this crazy amount of money, right?
Right.
And by the way, that's another thing, actually, I do want to talk about very quickly, if that's okay. Two things.
Yeah.
The first is that being a wholesaler doesn't mean that you get $100,000 deals, every day. They may happen, but they're rare. Like you're going to find most of the time, people and properties are not in such a way that you can really get away with that. But every once in a while, there's just this perfect storm of this perfect deal, and then like a nice big fat assignment fee will land there. But that's not really your goal. What your goal is, so the other thing is to get the experience. If you go through flips and you go through actually working in a property, you see what's involved in getting a property from when you buy it to when you sell it. And that's very important to understanding what it's going to take to deal with a given property. So when you're negotiating with a seller, you don't want to, so this is kind of the flip side of what I just said. You don't want to sell yourself short. You want to understand what the process is with the deal so that when you're in a property, you can negotiate. You can say, look, in order for me to take this problem on or this property on, it's going to do this and this and this. And then I'm dealing with the city, and then I'm dealing with delays, and then I'm dealing with this, and now it's COVID, and all that together doesn't make this deal very attractive for me. But if I get it here, that can work for me. you know, that, and then you just try to find a way to, you know, if I do get you everything that you're asking for, you know, I get you out on this day, I let you stay an extra week, or you know, this, and this, and this, can this number work for you? You know, yeah, okay, good. Then you've got yourself a nice deal.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, right? I think it's always about just swinging, right? Just get on
Yeah,
first base, or even if you strike
yeah,
out, who cares? Like everybody wants to hit that home run that very first time, and
yeah,
it rarely happens. Sometimes it even happen until like your 10th time at bat,
yeah,
right? So
totally.
I think that's great advice. It's the experience that you get,
Yeah, I
right?
love that you said that, because that's like, if I can tie this back into skateboarding a little bit, like skateboarding is just a dumbass. Like anybody who from the outside watches a skateboarder, like, you are insane. Much like the way I look at these parkour guys who hang from their fingertips on huge buildings and like
Oh,
beams even and
geez,
stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
crazy.
your poor mom, right?
Yeah,
Like those kids die doing that. But
yep,
anyway, the thing about that is, when you can just repeatedly subject yourself to pain and disappointment, and just the burning passion for getting it done just will not let you stop.
hmm,
That's what's going to get you to, like, for many of the first few wholesale deals I did, they were, you know, very low, and I had to do so much work. And then I started figuring out the signs of sellers and the signs of a troubling deal versus an easy deal, and then allocating the right energy to it. So like you said, right, you kind of go through these deals, and then eventually you figure out like something that maybe someone else might miss. Like, wait a second, there's a good chunk there that I can get if I go and see it and I ask the right questions, right? There's something here that the seller maybe is seeing as a problem, but that can be a benefit, and that, you know, I can leverage that. But you won't know that if you don't go through all those little base hits. And um, you know, so you're in the beginning, you're investing in yourself. Why? Because if you want to invest in yourself, why should anyone else, right? You're spending that money on yourself, and then you're doing all this hard work and you're not getting your results. And it takes a while from starting to actually getting that end piece. You got to figure out, like, if you're going to become a doctor, you go to school, you do the homework, you do the test, and then you're a doctor. It's not like that in real estate. You've got to figure out all that stuff kind of on your own, because even if you have a mentor, they can't impart the experience on you. You have
right.
to gain those intuitions and gain that experience and just hammer away at failure for a while until
Yep.
you get it figured out. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, look, you don't learn when everything goes according to plan. You learn when
Yeah.
you get thrown in the fire and you make the mistakes, and you got to
Well
try
said,
and
man.
figure out how to navigate and get through it. I mean, listen, man, I've had tons of sleepless nights. You know, tons where I'm just like, man, I don't even want to
I
wake up
know.
tomorrow. I don't want to
I
even deal with
know.
this.
Oh God.
But then you
Oh,
look back at it and you realize how much stronger that's made you, how
yeah.
much larger your circle has grown of experience and
Yeah.
comfort to be able to now deal with another problem. You're like, ah, yeah, I've dealt with something like that before.
Yeah.
And those are the people that I want to partner with. Those are the ones where,
Yeah.
you know, and I guess just leading to the next question, like, what is one of the worst experiences that you've had doing this?
For wholesaling or for purchasing property?
I'll say wholesaling. Let's stick with wholesaling.
Okay. So, geez, the worst.
Yeah.
I had the most awful wholesale deal I did, but I want to talk about the wholesale didn't, like the one
Right.
that it
So
didn't
I was
end
going
up
to say, what
working.
was it? It wasn't one of my deals, was it, or one of my
No,
one
well,
Chris's?
that one, oh my God, man,
Yeah,
that
yeah, I
one
know
was
that
such
one
a,
was a little
it
messy.
through no fault of his own. Really, it was just a combination of really, really bad things that came together. And talk about, like, there was a moment there where it almost fell apart, where there's just a little scarring on your heart now, you know, like you're better for it, you're stronger for it, but man, that was a moment there, right?
Yeah,
So I had
yeah,
that with that. But I think the one that I want to talk about, the one that comes to mind, is the one that I actually didn't even make a profit from.
yeah. And so, hold on. So before you get to that, though, but
Mhm.
even with that deal, though, and it put a little bit of a scarring on your heart. I mean, was there something now that you've kind of put in place where, like, okay, cool, this is what we maybe did wrong, and here's how we
Yeah.
make sure that this never happens again.
Yeah.
Right.
You always adjust, right? And that was the benefit, because now I understand how to, because that, in that case, that was a different kind of a buyer.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit more complicated because there was a representation aspect to it. So it
Right.
was kind of like, if I'm dealing with a buyer and we have that relationship, even if they're new, I can still work it out that it will go away, that I can have a little bit more control. But there's just more moving parts, and that wasn't the main thing. But understanding that this is going to be this kind of a buyer and that things can go that direction, I'm going to be a lot stricter up front with certain requirements for that kind of buyer than I would for a regular wholesale buyer. Like, they're
Right.
going to have to meet these requirements and exceed, like, get ahead of these guys. And if they can't do it in time, then I can't
For
take
sure.
that risk,
Yeah, you
right?
just put
But
processes in place, right? So yeah,
yeah, it's
no,
systems and
that's good.
processes. That's right. That's
Absolutely.
right.
Okay, so anyways, yeah, let's talk about that deal. That deal that
So
that you said.
so yeah, there was this deal that was out in Hamilton, and it wasn't a great deal. It was a semi-detached, and the owner was a young woman, and she was like pretty badass in my view. Like, I thought she was pretty cool. She was like in her mid-20s maybe, and she has this. I think it was at the time just a one unit on the main floor, and the basement could be maybe converted into another unit. But it was a semi, and it had water coming in, and it wasn't, uh, renovated really. I mean, it was livable, but it wasn't like beautiful. And the seller had a heart condition, and she was saying, hey, I've got this property, and I just don't want to keep dealing with it because of my heart. And I went to see it, and I told her, I understand you want to get here, but I need to get it down here. It's the only way I can do it. And she said, well, no. And I said, okay, well, I wish you all the best. In fact, I wanted to warn her. I was like, if you're going to sell, do you have a fixed mortgage? Do you have a what? You have a fixed mortgage. Okay, so you should be aware of the IRD. Like, I'm trying to help her out and go, okay, so here's how you come around that. Anyway, a couple days goes by, and she texts me again saying, okay, I'll sell here. And I go, again, that's, I'm here still. Like,
Right.
nothing changed,
And
right?
sorry, and just for people listening, IRD is this what interest rate
Oh,
differential?
interest rate differential. So if you have a
Yeah.
fixed mortgage, and let's say a 5-year fixed, and you sell your property
Mhm.
with it, like, let's say you're a year, 2 years, maybe 3, 4 years into your thing. If you're not in the last, I think, I actually don't remember what it is. I think the last 6 months or something
Well, I
like
think
that.
essentially, and again, we're not mortgage agents by any means, so fact
We're
check
not
this.
mortgage
But
agents. Yeah, yeah.
but I mean, if you have an interest rate, it's 5%, and you go to sell it, and interest rates are now say down to 3%, you could pay that differential between that of
Yeah.
2%, which could be thousands and thousands of dollars. It can be
There,
very, very expensive.
it's a complicated formula. I actually
Yeah,
tried to solve it it's madness, right? Don't
it
even bother.
is. Yeah,
Basically, it's roughly 20 to 30 grand, if you're purchasing between two and $400,000, something like that. It's roughly
it
around
could
there.
be. It could
It
be.
could be. It could be. So
Mhm.
the problem is just a hefty fee. It's more than just the 3 months of interest that you would pay if you had an open mortgage.
Correct.
So, but the way that you get around that is you port the mortgage. So if you purchase a property of
Hmm.
equal or greater value, the loan to value, whatever, how that works, then you basically just move it into that property. So you're mitigating any losses there. I don't even know. I think, yeah, they won't go lower in the mortgage amount. It has to be the same amount that you currently have on the mortgage or higher. And they didn't charge me anything for doing that. So that's how you would get around that. Is you basically, it's kind of an incentive for you to purchase another property rather than hang on the cash, which is kind of a good thing maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah, the problem with this person was that she was facing an IRD, and it made no sense for her to go through that. You might as well just So anyway, we agree at this price, and everything's good. And then this was another mistake, and another learning point was I sent out an agent with a buyer, and because the agent was there, I'm like, he knows how to handle this, but I should have been there. I wasn't. So if I was there and I was talking with the tenants, I would have been able to make everything cool. But what happened was the tenant said, hey, are you buying this property, to the realtor? And he's like, well, we're kind of just investigating. But the tenant didn't even know that the owner was selling. So
Mm.
the owner calls me all pissed off, and they're like, hey, the tenants found they're selling, and now they want to do this and that. And I'm like, oh, well, sorry, but And then like a day later, she goes, I talked to this lawyer about these conditions here, and they're actually like not to my benefit at all. And I'm like, well, I don't represent you. I represent me. So we agreed that this was, and really the clauses didn't really matter. It was just like one of them was, well, okay, so to be fair, one of them was the seller agrees to continue to care for the property as a responsible owner would, and that if any leaks or whatever happens, to notify me right away. and she got a basement flood because she needed to do a new weeping system, or I'm not really sure, but she was thinking about that. But anyway, the water came in. She's like, so now do I have to pay for all this stuff? I'm like, look, don't pay for anything yet. Let me just see what the damage is, and then we can think about a plan, right? But anyway, she just kind of lost it on me, and because she made me feel like she had been taken advantage of, right? And I said, look, I don't know what to tell you. I did what you asked me to do. The only thing is that these conditions aren't in your favor, but big deal. I'm purchasing the property. I'm not out here to like just swindle you.
Yeah.
You sold at a price that worked for you, and you had to get out.
Right.
Like you couldn't wait, or like I'm not. So the troubling thing for that was that really kind of shook me. And I actually neglected to waive one of my conditions in time. And if I don't waive it, then it makes the deal null and void. Right. And so the deal ended up being null and void anyway. Anyway, so this person goes to RICO to report me, and I'm not governed by any real estate board, so it didn't affect me. But and she lied, and they contacted me and say, hey, what's going on? I said, hey, look, this is the text conversation. It explains everything. And they were like, okay, well, yeah, you're right. Like, she just overreacted. I think what it was a combination of, seller's remorse, and because really she could have done better, and she knew she could have done better, but she just didn't want to deal with it. But then she changed her mind. And it's like, I didn't change my mind. So
you know what?
That's an ugly one.
Yeah, that's a good story, right? Because those are some of the things that can potentially happen.
Yeah.
When you've got seller's remorse, or even you got buyer beware, one of those, and it can really cause some sticky situation. But those things do happen in this world, and I know a lot of people that are listening say, well, you know what, forget it, I'm just going to stick to my 9 to 5, and I don't want to have to deal with it. But listen, at your 9 to 5, you still got to deal with shit anyways, and you still got to deal with bullshit there anyways.
I agree.
So with the shit and the bullshit you got to deal with over here, you can completely change your whole entire life. You really can. And I think that is why I like that story. And that's why I don't mind sharing horror stories, because these things do happen. Right. But again, you learn from it. So Alex, listen, thank you very much for your time. That was that was a shitload of really good information, especially for beginning people who want to potentially get into real estate and be wholesalers because they don't have the cash or the down payment. So this is fantastic. Now, what advice would you give to a new wholesaler, and how can we maybe kind of close off the podcast this evening?
That's a great question. I always feel a little bit of pressure when I try to say the right thing to move those people from the majority who won't do anything to those who start doing things. But really all I can say is, I've said this actually before. I was interviewed before and had the same question. So I'm going to reiterate it. I think that there's no one size fits all solution for everybody about what you should do. Probably the best shortcut is just get mentorship and have someone who can work with you personally and identify where you're at and what the issues are and give you real-time feedback. That will really accelerate things for you. But ultimately, you need to know who you are. You need to know what your personality type is. If you take like the DISC profile test, if you read books like Personality Plus and 5 Love Languages and these kinds of books, you figure out who you are and how that's an arbitrary thing, and that other people are their own arbitrary way, and that you got to be able to identify what kind of person they are in order to speak effectively to them, and really figure out how you can bring value to them and solve their problem. So if you don't, first of all, I guess if you don't really read personal development books, you might want to grab a couple of titles we threw down here. Like definitely Personality Plus is a game changer, in 5 Love Languages. That will help you understand what kind of a person you are. What you do with that then is you network like a crazy mofo. And when you go network, like I hate networking. I don't like going up to people and then saying, hey, I'm such a great guy and I can make a bunch of money and all this kind of stuff. I just go find friends. I get attention. I wait for people to come up to me, and then I try and see where they're at, and you make pals, because what you're doing in that process is you're meeting brokers, you're meeting realtors, you're meeting all these investors that have different knowledge. It's a brain trust. And you're also maybe potentially going to find that one JV partner who's going to change things for you, because they might be the yin to your yang. If you're a very detail oriented person, let's say, you might get stuck in analysis paralysis. I analyzed 50 deals. I have all these spreadsheets, but you haven't made any offers. You need an asshole like me who doesn't give a shit about rejection to go make an offer that's embarrassing, because I might get it. And then we're partners, and then we make something happen together, because you did all the numbers. Tell me what I need to, just give me the budget, or give me the data, whatever, figure that out. I'll go make the offer. Right. And that's synergy. So
beautiful. Great advice. Alex, listen, thank you very much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I actually
My
learned
pleasure.
a few new things today myself as well too. So,
Awesome.
listen, take care, and we will definitely get together once they open up
Looking
these
forward to
patios again. It's listen, man.
it. Yeah.
I'm probably they're gonna have to carry me out.
Yeah, right. Actually, if I can remember, I'm going to test my bartending skills. I think one time we had a drink. I think you had it was the Scotch whiskey on the rocks,
Yep.
and we had it at what was it? Moxie's out in Oshawa. Was it Moxie's?
Yes. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I'm a Scots guy.
yeah, I remember that.
Well,
Yeah.
good
So there
memory.
you
Good
go,
memory.
everybody. People know what to send you now. You're inundated with
That's
scotch. You
right.
have to share some of that.
All right, Alex. Listen, thanks again for your time and your experience and your knowledge and sharing that with
My
everybody.
pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. Have a great one, man.
All right. Yeah, you too. Take care.